All right. Good evening, everyone. All right. Good evening and welcome to the Heterodox Academy Conference. My name is Nicole. My name is Nicole Barbero, and I lead communications and events here at Heterodox Academy. And speaking on behalf of all of us here at Team HXA, we could not be more excited that you are joining us here in the vibrant city of Chicago. Hosting our annual conference here in Chicago felt very fitting, as it has a rich history of intellectual freedom, with the University of Chicago being a role model for many universities for free expression and open inquiry. As former Chicago President Lorne Kimpton stated over 70 years ago in his inaugural address, dedication to truth requires and justifies the freedom to seek it. And higher education is in a pivotal moment today, in one in which we must actively protect open inquiry for the good of our institutions, for the good of our students, for the seeking of truth, and the production of knowledge. The programming of the conference this year is focused on translating our principles into action and making sure that open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement are celebrated throughout the Academy. Over the next 2 days, each one of us will have the opportunity to learn from over 400 of our colleagues who represent over 250 institutions. We'll hear about the challenges and the triumphs in advocating for HXA principles on their campuses. We'll hear about research findings and teaching methods and much more. And if we do this weekend right, we should hear lots of disagreement, constructive, of course, lots of viewpoints, and sparks of insight for everyone as we return to our campuses. We know it is not always easy to stand up for open inquiry and free expression in the Academy, but we hope you will come away with a renewed energy and excitement in our collective work to elevate our universities from within. And don't forget, we do have several meals and social events scheduled for the next 2 days. While there's, of course, tremendous value in our scheduled programming that we have, we also all know that so much learning happens in our casual conversations that we have and new connections that we make. So, I invite you to challenge and contribute to the discussion as we work together to turn our principles into action. And I want to take a minute to recognize our wonderful sponsors who helped make this event possible tonight, with a special shout out to our gold level sponsors, the Mercatus Center at George Mason University and the University of Austin. Please join me in thanking them. Now for a bit of the necessary housekeeping. All the plenaries are here in the Chicago Ballroom, so everyone found this okay, which is a good sign as we're starting. The rest of the programming will occur on this floor, as well as concurrent sessions occurring on floors 3 and 6. And as many of you enjoyed our pre-conference programming, you will know that the escalators will lead you astray if you are trying to find floor 6. Please use the elevators, not the escalators, as you try to find floor 6. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, just want to chat, Team HXA all has purple name badges on, so please come find us. We are happy to listen and answer any questions you have. We also have a friendly face, mostly Malik, over at our info table as well. Of course, Wi-Fi is available throughout the conference. We have them on the little table cards, but if you find the conference and our Wi-Fi password here, you'll be connected very easily. And we also, importantly, have an app. It is probably the easiest and best way to find what sessions are, and a really handy thing where you can just click on the floor plan so you can actually see where the room is. So please use the app. We also now have open the games on the app, so please find our QR codes and other activities on the app. Winners will win prizes. You can keep track on the leaderboard on the app. So we do have prizes for you. Okay. And, remember, please, this conference is not hush-hush. Quite the opposite, actually. So we invite you to use our hashtag, share what is happening on social media, on your channels. We want to bring our ideas to those who were unfortunately unable to make it tonight. So the more you share, the more our ideas grow. And as you socialize and make new connections, please be on the lookout for new members who are designated with purple new member stickers on their name badges. Please bring them into your discussions, make them feel welcome. The more we continue to grow, the greater the impact we will have on the Academy. All right, now, it is my distinct honor to welcome to the stage to deliver his plenary address our fearless leader here at Heterodox Academy, President John Tomasi.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming. But when I say thank you for coming, I actually mean thank you for coming. It's been, for a lot of you, as for us at HXA, an exhausting year. Hills, valleys, we wanted to cry, we wanted to laugh, we wanted to rejoice, we wanted to despair. Lots went on this year. Many of you just finished your semesters a few weeks ago, and yet you made time in your schedules to come to this conference, to register, to buy your tickets to fly out here. We just sincerely, each and every one of you, we're just so grateful that you chose to be with us. So thank you for that. I want to make a special thank you to the HXA board. The board, like many of you, is active with HXA through the entire year. They also made the effort to join us here today. We had a board meeting this afternoon. If you don't mind, I'm going to ask, if the board members don't mind, I'm going to just call your names out and ask you to stand up. And when after they've all stood up, we'll clap for them together. So, Steve Laub from Silicon Valley. No. Tony Benute. Where's Tony? Really? Oh, sorry. Tony Benute in the shadows. Kathleen O'Connor from the Asmus Family Foundation. Let's see, who else? Kate Stith from Yale Law. Jeff Flyer from Harvard Medical School. Who else am I missing? I can't think of his name. Oh, right. The co-founder of Heterodox Academy. I call him the founder who stayed. Our board chair, John Haidt. Join me in thanking them. So the last time we met, it was in Denver 2 years ago. A lot's changed since we were in Denver 2 years ago. But I'm just curious at first, just to get this started a little bit, how many of you here were there 2 years ago? Can you raise your hands high? Interesting, lots. And put them down, please. And now I'm going to ask you a different question. If you raise your hand for both questions, there's a problem, just logically, as you'll see. Second question is, how many of you joined HXA since June a year ago, 2 years ago? Nice. So you with your hands up. For us, you're the blessed ones. You know, we like the old guard, right? You can put them down. You can put them down now. I know you like being blessed, but for the new members in particular, we're just really delighted to have you as part of our group. I'll be saying more about what it means to us to have new members in a moment as I go. At Denver, as you'll recall, you may recall, our theme was trust. We talked a lot about the mechanisms of trust, the possibilities of trust, and some of the threats towards trust. And you probably all remember, among the things that have happened, one of the big things that's happened since we last got together was this kind of stellar Gallup poll that came out a year ago, that showed a dramatic decline in trust people have for the institutions of American higher education. And we put up some data there because my dweeby colleagues thought you should have the micro data, but what I just wanted to call your attention to, the big takeaway from that poll was that over the course of 20 years, about 20 years, from 2015 to 2024, public trust in universities declined by about 20%. That's a calamitous decline in the trust that our fellow citizens have for one of the most important sets of institutions in a free society. A free society needs free universities to help create the habits of mind and heart to create free people, free and democratic people. The declining trust in our universities is a disaster for a free society. And that poll, which was one of the things that made us despair around HXA, happened before the events of the past year. It'll be interesting to see when the new polling results come out whether there's been any change. The team and I did a little exercise. We decided to just make a inside team list of the things that we thought were most striking since we were all last together. And we picked out, I don't know, our top 10. Your list would be different, no doubt, because there's so many incredible things in both directions. But I just want to remind you of some of the things that happened since we were last all together. So, and we picked out pictures. They told me not to leave the stage, but I really want to. You know, you recognize some of these people. You know, Ron DeSantis. And of course, there's the king, but I like the picture because I think it's Camilla. Camilla? Camilla. Camilla? Camilla. Some Brit should, so Camilla, and the son who's not Harry, that's a joke. Let me just remind you of some of the things that happened and how we see some of these things. So, the Stop Woke Act, right? I think it went into as I recall when we were in Denver, it had been passed, but it hasn't gone into effect yet. I think it went into effect July 1st in 2022. The Stop Woke Act and some legislation that came after it led to a kind of the situation where we started watching something happen that the founders of the AAUP in 1915 predicted would happen. And what happened, one way to think of it, and I think within HXA, our membership, and including some of our team members, cheer for some of these things and despair for others. We don't always agree on what counts as a thing to cheer and a thing to despair. But the Stop Woke Act and some other legislation leading to the situation in Florida and some other states too, where external agents have lost trust to such a degree, this is one narrative about what's happened, that they're taking control of the universities themselves. And for those who care about academic self-governance, that's worrying. But I just wanted to read you something, and this little scrap of paper that I printed out. Let me just bear with me. This is a quotation from the AAUP statement of 1915, directly apropos of the slide that was up there. Quote, "If this profession should prove itself unwilling to purge its ranks of the incompetent and the unworthy, or to prevent the freedom which it claims in the name of science from being used as a shelter for inefficiency, for superficiality, or for the uncritical and intemperate partisanship, then it is certain that that task of purging will be performed by others." And they go on to say, "By others who lack the certain essential qualifications for performing it, and whose actions is sure to breed suspicions and recurrent controversies deeply injurious to the internal order and the public standing of our universities." That's one of the plays that we see playing out in different states, on different campuses across the country. It's one of the things HXA is watching very carefully and are interested in getting more involved in, as you'll see as I go. Next, Kamala and company. So the UK Higher Education Act. Some of you know what that act's about. I did a podcast with Eric Kaufman recently, who's one of the people who helped write the act. It has a bunch of different features. This is an example now of a federal reform act, a centralized government reform act, along the lines of what the AU people warned us against. But one of the really interesting features of what happened in the UK, I think, in fact, perhaps the most interesting feature of that act, is that it set up this ombudsperson or a free speech champion on every campus in the UK, effectively. So they decided in England, our cousins across the pond, they decided, you know what? These universities are not policing themselves. Maybe they need some help from the outside. And their way of doing help was to have creating this institutional mechanism on these campuses. I just mentioned that as one of the things that's sort of a model for us, that we're watching around HXA, we're talking about that, we're examining that. When we read the newspapers about the various presidential candidates and their routines and the things they're possibly thinking about doing, we think about the UK. Other things that have been happening at SUNY and at some other state systems, some other very large state systems, including the California state system, there have been some movements towards having course requirements in the areas of DEI. So there's been kind of this movement happening connected to the Stop Woke Act, I think, that same line of thinking, where some legislators are saying, listen, we're going to change the content of these schools. We're going to get involved in these things and change the way teaching's done. Who can forget? Right now we're getting to the hot stuff. Who can forget the incredible moment, I think the most incredible moment of the last 2 years. In some ways, in my experience, I've been sort of doing reform work at universities for about 25 years, my whole life, my whole professional life. I think of that testimony as being the most remarkable thing I've ever seen. So ask the question, does the handbook of your school forbid, what was the line exactly? Is calling for the genocide of Jews against Harvard's Code of Conduct handbook. And as we all know, and endless ink has been spilt on this, I spilt some too, many of you have too, I know. We saw the spectacle of these presidents not knowing what to say, or saying things like they would duck under a legal hedge, duck into a nearby legal hedge and sort of cower there until the session was over, rather than rising up and making some statement about what universities are for. It felt like they didn't know in a deep sense what universities were for. I know it wasn't a great forum for having that discussion, but the lack of the urge, the lack of the impulse to rise up, to elevate, to take that moment to teach their fellow citizens was truly remarkable. And as we know, having watched university presidents presiding over institutions which showed no concern for free speech, which allowed free speech rights to be trampled, not just in terms of people saying inflammatory things, but people doing research, people doing sincere research on questions of race, for example, sincere research on questions of sex and gender. People at Harvard and other places too, doing that research have been pilloried and canceled under the watch of these same presidents. So to see them discover the free speech principles was, to all of us, shocking, but also quite striking for a variety of reasons. The spring campus protests, still fresh on our minds. I spent time on the Brown campus the day they decided to decamp in exchange for having Brown vote on the question whether they should divest from Israel next fall. That's going to happen. That vote's going to happen at the full Brown Corporation in the third week of October, 2 weeks after the anniversary of the initial attack. Should be an interesting time on campus. I'm not sure they thought that through very well. But the campus and the protests, what we saw, among other things, we saw people who were crossing the line from robust protest, deliberation down and dirty, into the realm of civil disobedience, breaking the rules, and yet their impulse and their rhetoric about breaking the rules seem to be denying that when you break a rule like that and be civil disobedient, you actually should be punished. In fact, they think they shouldn't be punished. They seem not to have understood that the letter from the Birmingham jail was actually written from a jail. Or they don't seem to remember, or they weren't taught somehow, that Gandhi's heroism, and he's a controversial figure in a bunch of ways, obviously. I can't resist that in a heterodox room. But Gandhi's heroism was in part because of his commitment to bear the penalties of the acts he did on his body as a way of expressing to his fellow citizens what the higher ideals might be, as a way of pointing them to that. But this generation of students mostly didn't pursue that path. Canceled research. There are so many ones we could pick just in the past 2 years. One that's close to home for HXA involves a panel that many of you know about, a panel on sex, the question of whether sex is a useful analytical category in anthropology. Elizabeth Weiss, who is an anthropologist, who is a visiting fellow this year at the Siegel Center in New York, the new HXA Center, which I'll speak about in a moment. She was on a panel that was with 3 other women that was accepted for a presentation on this question, this serious question: to what degree is sex a useful analytical category in anthropology? And Elizabeth, in her normal, quiet but forceful way, had a title for her talk, something like, "Skeletons have sex, humans have gender, skeletons have sex," but not for the humor in that, but for the content of asking the question. The American Anthropological Association and the Canadian counterpart, after accepting the panel for presentation of those conversations at their conference, decided to cancel it. So they canceled that conference, again, one of these research cancellations. They're not always on campus. Sometimes there's straight up research groups doing the cancellations. HXA, as many of you know, uncanceled that panel. We put it on ourselves. I hosted it, which was really interesting for me. That one of the panelists is a self-described radical lesbian separatist. I've always wanted to meet a self-described radical lesbian separatist, and she was actually one of the best people on the panel. And she rolled some stuff about, well, I shouldn't go on, but she rolled some stuff about how men commit such a high percentage of the violence against women that if we soften the importance as of sex as an analytical concept, we're going to lose the ability as researchers to explain really fundamental problems that human beings face. So this is, again, not just some thing that happened to some person out there. This is a direct attack on what the academy is about. The academy has to be the place where we talk about those hard issues, where people are able to think about things that matter to our society, even when they're uncomfortable, very uncomfortable to some people in society. 2 more. And the last 2 I'll do more quickly. I mean, it's been so interesting the last couple weeks to watch things happening in Boston. It's like the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Free Party. So we have in the span of, 2 weeks, MIT dropping DEI statements in hiring. Pretty epic, right? The ramifications of that are still just getting going out across the country. And then Harvard follows up and adopts institutional neutrality regarding statements. They don't say it's neutrality, I know. I sort of think of that as a little bit of a postmodern dodge, because neutrality, it sounds a little bit like liberal, objective truth, rule of law, something like that. But whatever the reason is, I really urge you to read you probably read the news reports, but I urge you to read the committee report. It's quite striking. Along with rejecting the idea of neutrality, when they do that slightly postmodern dodge, they back themselves over and end up taking this very strong position by saying what they're for. We're not dropping neutrality because, this is how it reads, because they so clearly are in favor of a positive value the value of the truth-seeking aspect of the university. So if you don't want to say neutrality, but you want to instead say, we're so non-neutral that we're going to stand for this and stand up and proudly say that, hallelujah. Anything you want, do that. And then Harvard, I just mentioned. Along with things out there in the world, and now getting closer to us, a lot's changed around HXA. Lots of things have been going on within our organization. So among one thing, our membership was 4,007-ish in Colorado. It's grown, almost 50% since then. Thank you for joining, those of you who have joined. It's just an incredible thing to have so many people joining the organization on a regular basis. We're still mining for members in kind of a organic, let it happen kind of way. As you'll see, we're soon going to be moving towards a more systematic way of beating the bushes for your fellow colleagues who believe in what we believe, but don't quite want to sign the form to become one of us. But it's a pretty remarkable increase. And I'll also just mention that at HXA, we don't just count membership in terms of the number of people. We're also interested in the quality and depth of engagement. And we find that on both those dimensions, the dimension of the numbers, but also the dimension of intensity of interest, that there's a substantial increase there as well. One marker of that deepening of interest is that an increasingly large percentage of our members make donations to HXA. So to each of you, any of you in this room, who along with being members and helping us in all the different ways you do, all the work you do, the way you stand up, the way you help us with research projects, the way you teach your classes, the way you stand up for the true ideals of a free university and a free society, thank you. And to those who actually wrote checks on top of that, thank you, thank you. I was thinking, I'm going to go off script now for my team, so forgive me for this. I was thinking that 7,000 members, what if every member gave, I don't know, $100? Now, I haven't got a calculator with me, and I'm a humanities person, but I think it's who here's from MIT? What would that, well, John Chisholm from MIT, can you calculate that for me? He couldn't do it. Okay, so I just want to toss this out here for you to think about for a minute. If every HXA member contributed $100 or maybe $50, it would really help our organization do more things. Now, my colleagues are looking at me and saying, you're actually turning your keynote into a fundraising talk. But some of them, Malik especially, knows that since I took this job, I do that a lot. I have a sort of pattern that I've observed myself, for better or worse, doing. I often thank people for coming. I say a few things about HXA, and then I ask them for money. And so with you just now, I just did that. I've also, my wife has told me that she thinks the reason why our friends have, since I took this job, the reason why our friends have stopped inviting us to dinner parties is because I have this habit when dessert comes out of standing up, ringing my glass, saying a few words about HXA, and then saying something like, can you imagine if everyone in this room gave $100? I'll do one more just to share with you. This is maybe more than I should share, but I will anyway because I was really struck by it. Last week, our dishwasher broke. So this guy I've known for a long time, Jimmy, came by. He's a plumber, to fix the dishwasher. And I was doing some Zoom meetings, and he was in there fixing the dishwasher. And so I went in there and just, I've known him for a long time. We used to play soccer together, and I was just chatting with him. He said, so you got a new job, right? I said, well, yeah, Heterodox Academy, trying to reform the university, viewpoint diversity, kids think for themselves. And he said, that's what you need. You got to have, it's the next generation. You got to reach them. It's really important. I said, you're right, it is. And do you know, if you gave $100, and I'll just end by saying, because this is too good. He said to me, okay, John, he's known me for a long time too. He said, John, listen, after you pay me, give me as large a tip as you want, and I'll give half of it to HXA. No joke. Smart plumber. One of the big things we've been doing, and many of you have been involved in enabling us to do this, was this initiative that we launched since we last met of bringing our members together to create communities and councils on various campuses. When we started this initiative January a year ago, Michael Regnier, can you raise your hand? Michael Regnier and I, our executive director, our fabulous executive director, Michael Regnier and I were yeah, let's do it. Michael Regnier and I were thinking, well, we'll start this thing, we'll do a pilot, we'll do 2 or 3 campuses, we'll sort of see what it's like. We got so many incredible applications from you people, and Michael and I interviewed every single group of that first cohort, that we decided, we didn't take them all, we started saying not yet to some. We started off with 13 and then 23. It grew over the course, as the year was going by, the calendar year was going by, we did another cohort, 36. You can see the Canadians were multiplying. Our northern cousins were like showing us that they care about heterodoxy too, bringing some interesting ideas, by the way, to the way we think about these things. Kept growing. We're now up at around 50 in about a year. There's a new cohort being asked for now. You'll see, so there's the UK. I want to have, as we go forward, I want to have more Canadian universities, obviously, because they've proved to be incredible partners. But and we have these Brits now on our group who can help us be less naive and more sophisticated in our pronunciation of royalties' names. But I'm also interested in the idea of having us get a more international focus with these communities. I would love to see an HX community founded in Sweden. I would love to see an HX community started in New Zealand. I would really love to see an HX community started somewhere in the Far East. We have some really interesting people, some very active members in the Far East. We learn from each other across states and across countries. We can learn from each other across boundaries. We've been learning things from the UK, a small local one, but if we have more exposure, more deepening of our branchings and our network, we can learn more and accelerate the way we think about open inquiry and think about new models that maybe we could use here in the States and in North America. We launched a series of things called Heterodox Conversations with a trademark. My team insists that I get these memos like almost every day for the last couple of weeks saying, don't forget, whenever you type Heterodox Conversations, put in the TM above it. I don't know how to put the TM above it, so I just never, but we started these Heterodox Conversations. There's Azim Sharif, who's one of our, was a fellow at the Siegel Center, one of our Canadian fellows. We're doing some initiatives now, really interesting initiatives, to expand our work, looking for ways to work with allies, not just to make joint statements, though we do that sometimes. Some of you know that HXA teamed up with FIRE and with the AFA to do a joint statement a few months ago now, I think it was in February, a joint statement urging university presidents to consider adopting neutrality. That's an important work that we do. But we're also doing more close to the ground work, looking for ways strategically to connect our asset base, which is primarily groups of faculty, administrators too, but faculty is kind of our bread and butter, connect faculty with other groups on campuses who are powerful. So Bridge USA has been building student groups on campuses. There are, is it 20, Michael? I can't remember. How many? 16. So there are 16 campuses we've identified where there are HXA, strong, well-organized HXA communities up and running, and there are also bridge communities of students on those campuses. We're with the creative support from Arthur Binding Davis. And let me just say, by the way, is there someone here from Bridge USA in the room? I know there is. Where are you? Thank you, Bridge USA. I hate to do this to my friend. I'm sorry to do this to my friend Michael Murray. Michael Murray, where are you? Can you please stand up? I know you're wearing dungarees. Where are you? Michael, thank you. It was an example. This initiative is an example, and I'll just share this frankly, where we had we've been having a long conversation with Arthur Binding Davis, a fabulous foundation, about something we could do together. But Arthur Binding Davis, I think, sort of held back until they've really found the right kind of thing. And what they were looking for, it seems to me, as I understand the conversations we had with them, they wanted us to find some way to use their resources to truly magnify what we were trying to do while magnifying what another group is trying to do, Bridge USA. So they've created this system where on these campuses, they're going to be sending in proposals. It'll be different ones from different campuses for things that they want to do together. So it's entrepreneurial, but it's also collaborative. It's a bit of like a designed order for spontaneity. They sort of set it up to make something spontaneous and interesting grow, but it was a planned spontaneous order. So I just want to mention as one example of the kinds of initiative we're rolling out. Our HX communities have been around before there were campus communities. These are disciplinary groups and also geographic groups. HX Libraries is just one of our most active and interesting groups. I mean, how often do I open my inbox and see yet another interesting initiative undertaken by the librarians? I mean, I love librarians. Don't they all wear glasses? I mean, the librarians group. Our STEM group is run by Anna Krylov and Dorian Abbott. They have a Substack on STEM. They're fabulous. HXA, many of you know, has been supported by a grant from Schmidt Futures to move into STEM in a more forceful way. That group is doing lots of interesting things that I won't preview now, but there's stuff coming, you'll see. HX Canada, again, our northern cousins, super active, super interesting, powered by some foundations there that have a similarly strategic way of looking at things. They force us to be better as an organization. They hold us to high standards and hope we can hit those standards. And HX Canada, a geographically based group, recently had, like last 3 weeks ago, had a big conference on DEI. Was it on DEI? I mean, so they're just a really great group. Our Speakers Bureau we've just launched. We want to start platforming your voices in a more systematic way. As many of you know, we've been reaching out to people to set up pairings of people for the Heterodox conversations. But we also just have individuals. This is kind of a list of some of our stars. I can multiply this list many times. You know many of these people. Fabulous speakers who understand our values deeply, who see the world different ideologically, and who come to this similar set of HXA values from very different starting points. They exemplify the HXA way in fabulous ways publicly. Also, most dear to my own heart, we opened last August a center in New York with the help of the Templeton Foundation, the Templeton Religion Trust. And that center, the Center for Academic Pluralism, was within a couple months renamed the Siegel Center. We had a fabulous gift from Mike and Sophia Siegel, a couple in New York who are really concerned about the direction of American higher education, who believe that HXA's model of, on the one hand, having a talent pool, intellectual talent pool, all of you, who could be brought together into a research center to do the world's best research and thinking about the next generation of free speech issues, the next generation of neutrality issues, the next generation of policies of all different sorts to deal with the current sets of arguments out there on their campuses. That having an organization with that central brain, but also with a distribution network, was maybe something worth investing in. So they've invested in us, and they invested in a way that, again, was very interesting to us in terms of philanthropic entrepreneurship. They didn't just say, here's a bunch of money for you, which I always prefer that. They said, what would you do with some mezzanine funding? What would you do to make this center that you already have up and running? How could you supercharge it? So they wanted a funding proposal just based on new things we might do if we had the opportunity, sort of a blue skies approach. And that's going to be supercharging a lot of our work in ways that become very apparent. We're in a heavy hiring phase now, as many of you know. Oh, I should also just say, sorry. There's a picture here of the group. what we're in this me, my back to you. That's Diana Mutz laughing. Some of you know Diana Mutz from Penn, just a fabulous scholar and an incredible HXA person. But this group meets, we meet formally every week for the Open Inquiry Seminar. We intensively read and discuss classic texts regarding open inquiry. In this session, for example, we were reading the AAUP statement of 1915, which I quoted a few minutes ago. And what we did with this session, this was the last session of this year, our first year. We brought together the outgoing fellows for their final session, and we also brought in all the incoming fellows, the people coming in next year. Because our aim is not just to build cohort by cohort of people who are visiting fellows, the way most research centers at most universities operate, in fact, having been in a number of them myself through time. Rather, we're trying to build a longitudinal community. We're trying to build a network of thinkers who may have only been at the center for one particular year, but who are now marked by that membership for the rest of their lives, rest of their academic lives. So we wanted to get the fellows from the 2 years together to spend a full day together. We talked about the AAUP statement first to sort of see who was who and what was what in the room. Then we talked about the research in the coming year. And I should say to you, we are always looking for people to join us at the center. We offer fellowships, full years fellowships, semester-long fellowships, postdocs. If you want to take a year to come to New York and think seriously about open inquiry, to help us develop our models, to make us smarter in the things we do. Some of the people coming next year, we have it was interesting with the people who applied. We had a number of people who work in professional schools. One started a journalism school, two from law schools, one involved in a medical school, and they're interested in this idea about orientation programs specifically to do with professional schools. It's kind of interesting, it turns out, we're discovering. If you try to hold the universities to its mission, the mission's kind of a soft statement, and there's some struggle about making people take a mission statement and do the kind of open inquiry policies that we're all in favor of. Within professional schools, though, you often have a thicker mission statement. So for example, in medicine, there'll be a concern for open inquiry and discovery. It's a scientific organization, but there's also this imperatival element of health. Some of the most extreme threats to inquiry, the threats that we talk about all the time at HXA, are also more directly perceivable as threats to health. If you're not able to talk about sex, if you're not able to use race as a diagnostic tool, if you're not able to talk about obesity as a potentially from a health perspective worrying state of affairs, then you're not going to do well by the mission of your school, medicine. And that little idea, that little observation, which they brought to us, we think opens up lots of interesting doorways for us strategically to start thinking about specialized orientation programs for different professional schools. We've also started publishing reports. This in some ways is the big news from HXA. HXA has had these three values: open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, constructive disagreement. They're our lovely trilogy. I mention this often. I'm going to embarrass John again by doing it yet again. But I truly believe that part of what's magical about HXA is we have some of John Haidt's DNA sprinkled across our organizational structure. And that idea of those three values, and about being positive agents for change, about being willing to say, we love our universities and we want to make them better, that's the heart and soul of HXA. But along with that, along with those ideals and expressing them positively and empathetically and sincerely, along with all that, we're trying to increasingly add strategic thinking, looking for certain spots where we think we can actually make institutional changes happen. HXA is now getting into the business, and there'll be more of this business coming, as you'll see, and we're going to need your help to do it right. We're getting in the business now of taking stands on more specific issues. The report we wrote about neutrality was a team effort, and we produced this report, sent it out into the world to see what we could help some of these universities as they deliberate on these issues. What we're going to be doing now is expanding this project and start building more models. And as we expand, we want to get better at tapping your expertise, at tapping the true strength of the organization, which is all you intellectually dweeby academics who, like me, love studying this stuff, and if given a little time and some energy and some space and some resources could maybe produce something really powerful in some of these spaces. So I'm hereby at this moment going to call your attention to, we're calling you, inviting you to join us in a working group we're going to be setting up on our next big model, which is going to be on the problem of investment neutrality. So if you're interested in investment neutrality, if you might want to help us by building a new model, we picture ourselves probably building models along with building bibliographies, so that when a committee is formed somewhere, what I know from being on committees for years, when I'd be assigned to some committee at a university, the first thing I would usually do is like Google whatever the topic of the committee was, sort of learn it up from scratch, and then do what I could to write some report along with some of my colleagues. What if HXA could facilitate that project by becoming a trusted resource for committees all across the country on a whole range of topics? We'd be a trusted resource because, for two reasons. One, we'd be providing, in every case, an HXA model, which would be a thoughtful model, like our speech model, our statement model, that didn't just take Calvin and redo it, but really thought to ourselves, what are the biggest criticisms and the strongest objections to neutrality that have arisen since 1967 when the Calvin Committee met? And build a report based on some of those considerations, plus some strategic considerations. We need to have university presidents able to swallow the medicine. We need to put certain kinds of sugar mixed in with the medicine to make it go down. So we're going to be building these things, and we're also going to be just thinking about them in a more broad-minded ways. They're also going to be credible because, along with our report, HXA's recommendation, we imagine we're going to have bibliographies. So a committee member can go to the HXA website on, for example, investment neutrality, and they can read the very best documents and arguments against neutrality, investment neutrality, and the best arguments in favor of it. Then they can read our model as well. So our idea is to find a way to not just have members who believe what we believe, important though that is, but to now get a little more functionally precise about the mechanisms at universities that make change. We think committees are among those mechanisms, and therefore, we're doing something. We're just launching this tonight, but we have this idea about building something like a comprehensive national tracker of every, or most, let's say every, why not? It's just an idea for now, of every committee convening on a campus in America that is studying problems of open inquiry. We're asking your help. We're asking your help, and you can see here to let us know when a committee forms in your campus. Sometimes the usual process, as you guys know, the professors in the room know, the usual process is a president announces that she's going to create a committee on some topic. And there's a pause of about 2 weeks. That's an opportunity for HXA to get in there with our members, to get some of our members on that campus onto the committee. But even if we don't, for whatever reason, we'll know when the committee meets, we'll know who's on the committee. And we'll politely reach out to them in various ways to give them access to our resources. Instead of having to just Google around, we'll make their work easy for them. We'll give them a truly comprehensive list of the best sets of arguments on that topic, with different viewpoints being expressed, along with an HXA model which adds a specific element. It says, if you believe in our three principles, open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, constructive disagreement, then this is the model that flows from that. You might not like our model, but that might be because you don't like those three values. But that itself is revealing, I think. We want to call people to put their cards on the table, or at least to be clear about what their cards are that they're playing, whatever they might think they might be. So if you're interested in helping us with this, please sign on. We have other methods along with you. We plan to be searching through student newspapers and other kinds of resources to get data on this. But we're going to create a national database of committees. Really? Oops. Okay. So, I read a couple fascinating articles a couple weeks ago, that some of you may have seen, by Chris Rufo. And one of them really struck me, and some of you may have seen it. It was called Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Colombia. How many of you have read that? Can you raise your hands higher? You should all read it. It's important to read it. It's a really interesting piece, and it says a lot about what HXA is and what HXA is not. My main takeaway from that piece, focusing on Columbia, he also has a version of it that says boycott, divest, and sanction the Ivy League, and I anticipate the next one will be boycott, divest, and sanction the public universities, and then boycott, divest, and sanction Canadian universities, whatever. You can imagine this being spun out. But one of to me, the most striking idea in that piece, he says, listen, if you look at Columbia, you see what we've seen over the past few weeks was a conflict between two unattractive parties. The president and that group, who, by the way, had been selling Columbia as a radical college, who have been celebrating 1968 as a great breakthrough for learning and for academic freedom. And in some ways it was, but in some ways it wasn't. But they were celebrating these ideas of campus protest, sincerely it seemed, until they weren't. So on the one hand, we have that crowd. On the other hand, we have the campus protesters who, as I mentioned, they're a mixed group. Many of them are protesting sincerely. They're thoughtful. They're deliberating down and dirty, as I said before. But many of them weren't, as we saw. They were breaking the rules. And not only were they breaking the rules, they were breaking the rules and insisting that they not be punished because it wasn't really civil disobedience. They don't believe in that civil rights program. They don't believe in that civil rights paradigm. Their radicalism goes deeper. Their radicalism goes deeper to the basic idea of the rule of law. They're eroding some fundamental precepts. And Rufo says, there's not much to choose between the two. That's what we see on our campus. So let's just boycott, divest, and sanction them. Okay, fair enough. At HXA, we think we offer something else to choose. We're offering a way which is more positive, more serious, more committed to getting it right, more committed to finding ways to activate people like you, human beings like you with your experience on campuses, with your research profiles and your research skills, bringing you together with us to find a better model for our universities. I said this at the last meeting 2 years ago, and I believe it still. Our university system is not one. It's not the case that there was a golden age in the past and we're trying to recreate it. There were some wonderful things what happened in the 20th century. The development of the American Research University was one of the great historical accomplishments in human history, in my opinion. An incredible thing. A merging in some complicated ways of a Germanic research university with something like an English college, a place where these ideas of open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement allowed American universities to power to the top in the world. They'd be the best universities in the world. And yet, like the rest of America, it was still an imperfect project. It wasn't inclusive in all kinds of important ways. And as we become more inclusive, we've messed it up in a bunch of ways that's pretty predictable for human beings. It's not that surprising that we humans attempting to bring inclusion into a university system would wobble about what the purpose of the university system is. But at HXA, we see us as being involved with this rocket ship is something we have sort of a joke around HXA when we occasionally do something that we're all happy with, we achieve something on the team, instead of putting thumbs up or hearts or stars, we sometimes put rocket ships saying, now we're actually moving towards something. At HXA, we see ourselves with all of you as being the people who are trying to move our university system forward. We're not going back, we're going to a new future, a future where universities are truly inclusive, and they're also truly and unabashedly committed to searching for truth. That's something the world has never seen. A fully inclusive university which is committed to the pursuit of truth together. A community of imperfect learners brought together because of their awareness of their imperfections and committed to making it better altogether. So HXA is just getting started. We're building a rocket ship. Many of you are part of that rocket ship. I just want to thank you all again for coming and for being members of HXA. And now, the part that I've been waiting for. Some of you veterans will know that we at HXA every year give out a series of highly coveted prizes known as the Open Inquiry Awards. This year, we're expanding that concept. Nicole, please join me. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the first edition of the Heterodox Academy Awards ceremony. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We in the Academy take very seriously the responsibility, we have the historic responsibility to sort the chaff from the wheat. Is that a Canadian reference? To sort things out and to find the truly excellent one. Nicole, I'm so happy we're doing this together. I'm sure like you, like me, was just so delighted to watch our guests arriving, watching the way the way the styles change through time, the way people dress for this occasion. And I'm just, can I ask who you're wearing tonight?
Well, I am wearing exclusive HXA tonight. So please, if you would like an awesome exclusive HXA, we have them available.
Lovely.
And what are you wearing?
So I'm wearing Todd Snyder. That's my coat. I have a Walmart underwear, which you can't see. and the shirt I'm wearing, which is mainly made out of plastic or polyester, is from a Chinese company with a label that I can't read. It's in some language. Looks like Vietnamese, but they say it's from China. So that's, but notice also that we're both wearing sneakers, which apparently is really in vogue now. And,
comfortable.
And Nicole, would you want to venture a adjective or description for, I'm just thinking about watching the cutting edge styles that are always, whenever we have the Academy Awards ceremonies, the cutting edge styles are always one of the things we talk about the most. Would you want to venture a description of this year's style from the audience?
I would say academic. That's from my experience. It looks very academic.
Yeah, I would say a little.
It's not couture.
What's couture mean?
It's not this.
I would say maybe professorial.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
How many elbow patches are there? Anyone?
Okay, so let's begin our awards. We need to practice that part, obviously. Like I said, it's our first chance. So, drum roll, please.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It's not going to show the winner, is it?
No, not yet.
So the first Academy Award this evening will be the Award for Leadership. This award is given to the person who has most effectively championed the principles of open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement within the Academy and beyond. And the nominees are...
We might have to skip that part.
We're not doing nominees this year. And the winner is?
And the winner is Mary Kate Carey, University of Virginia.
Please come on down.
You press the next button.
This way?
Yes. Mary Kate Carey is winning tonight for her involvement in the adoption of UVA's statement on free expression and free inquiry, founding of Think Again at UVA, and chairing the UVA Heterodox Academy campus community. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. And then if you just want to go ahead down. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
We're still working on the Academy Awards bit here, but we'll get this. Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, at the University of Virginia, every once in a while, when I'm evangelizing about heterodox, I'll have a student say, very quietly, "Professor, what does heterodoxy mean?" And I'll say, I think the best way to say it is that great minds don't always think alike. And they say, "Oh, I like that." And so I want to say, the reason I'm telling you this is because I'm surrounded by great minds down at our Heterodox at UVA chapter, And I want to accept this award on behalf of everybody in our team down there. Andrus Ashu's here with us tonight, my colleague, and we're putting together a great event this fall to celebrate 60th anniversary of the birth of the free speech movement on college campuses, started at UC Berkeley in '64. So more fun to come, and thanks for this, and thanks for being such a great team to be a part of. Thank you so much.
The next prize from the Academy wants to award this year is the HXA Community Excellence Prize. You saw the map I put up of how the communities have grown. We have some ass-kicking communities out there. They're incredible. For the Heterodox, this prize is given to the Heterodox community or HX campus community that has done the most to advance or sustain open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, constructive disagreement in their discipline, academic setting, region, or campus. And the winner is
Heterodox Library is being accepted tonight by Craig Gibson. They're winning for elevating discourse. And they're winning for elevating discourse and open inquiry and viewpoint diversity in the library sciences and organizing so many wonderful regular events for the HXA community.
Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. And you may, thank you. You have a half an hour because.
No, not quite. John, we're very glad to hear that you really love librarians and that HXA loves librarians. So on behalf of Sarah Hartman-Caverly, the co-moderator for the group, and for the 80+ and growing members of HX Libraries, I'm very honored to accept this award. We really do try to live up to openness, and we're a very viewpoint diverse group, and we do engage in constructive disagreement from time to time, but in the best possible way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready?
Yep.
Our next prize is the teaching prize. This prize, the Academy awards this prize to the educator who has most effectively integrated open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement into classroom and/or curriculum.
And the winner is Simon Cullen. And he is winning for his innovative pedagogical techniques to foster open discussion and controversial topics in his courses, and specifically for his course on dangerous ideas in society. And he is also doing a demo tomorrow night during one of our receptions, and also has a session tomorrow. So if you're really interested in his great methods, please come see his sessions.
And you may.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank two HXA members who couldn't be here tonight. Richard Shyness, the Dean of Dietrich College at Carnegie Mellon, where I'm from, and Danny Oppenheimer, my colleague, friend, and collaborator in social and decision sciences. Their support at CMU has been, it's just meant so much to me. But most of all, I would like to thank my first teacher in philosophy, Neil Thomason. Nearly 2 decades ago, in the first philosophy class I ever took, Neil introduced me to J.S. Mill on liberty, and especially Chapter 2 on the liberty of thought and discussion, and to the importance of engaging deeply with opponents and opposing ideas. Neil also showed me everything that undergraduate education can be, and ever since I've been trying to do it as well as he did. Well, finally, I'd like to thank the vast majority of my students for never trying to get me cancelled. Teaching you has been among the most rewarding experiences of my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You go that way. Our fourth award is the Courage Award. This is for the person who's demonstrated consistent courage in pursuing truth and who embodies bravery in championing HXA's core principles in the Academy, who's demonstrated bravery in championing HXA's principles within the Academy despite social and professional costs.
And the winner is, I like the drum rolls. Michael Bailey. And he's winning this evening for embodying open inquiry in his decades of research on sexual psychology, particular female arousal, autogynephilia, and
Congratulations.
transgender
It's
identity
really an honor to
development
give you this
in the
honor.
face of
I'm really
significant
this.
professional and personal costs.
We mean it. We're joking, but we mean it sincerely. You're amazing. You're just amazing.
Do you want to say a few words? Okay.
80 years ago today, our troops landed to face the guns at Normandy. Nothing in my career has ever required that level of courage. There is an immense amount of untapped courage out there that we need to try to focus and unleash, and I can't think of a better group than this. So many of you have already shown your courage in the right way, and I'm honored to receive this. Thank you.
You ready?
Yes.
The Academy's final prize this year is the prize for exceptional scholarship. This prize is awarded to the academic who, through research or other forms of scholarship, has best advanced knowledge of open inquiry, viewpoint diversity, and constructive disagreement. And the winner is
Corey Clark. And
You're gonna walk up at the end or not? You are?
you do.
I do?
Yeah. And she is winning tonight for her leadership of large-scale collaborative research projects to understand bias and censorship in science, and for her leadership of the adversarial collaboration project at Penn that uses constructive
camera?
disagreement methods to resolve
Here?
contradictory findings in the scientific literature.
We're just happy to give you this award. It's just, it's a pros and a circle, so thank you so much.
Congratulations, Corey.
Thank you. I really just want to thank everybody in this room for all the work you've been doing over the past 5-10 years. I'm feeling hopeful for the first time in a very long time, and that's because of everything you've all been doing, so thank you. I also want to thank the Academy. My emotional support peacock Argus, who couldn't be with us tonight. Last but not least, just quickly, my 174 co-authors I've had so far, in alphabetical order, not in order of importance. Musa Al-Garbi, Carl Aquino,
Yep. The
Mike
music's
Bailey,
playing. The music's
Nicole
playing.
Barbaro,
Oh, thank you.
Chris Bauman.
Thank you, Corey. You could just close out and enjoy the drinks. Next slide.
Thank you all for coming. It's going to be a fascinating couple days. Please join us in the foyer for a drink, or maybe 2 at the most, because we need your brains tomorrow and for tonight. Thanks for coming and enjoy yourselves.